Hello, and thank you everybody for joining us this morning for the latest installment of Inflection's Coaching Clinic. I'm Rachel. I am a project manager here at Inflexion for our school partnerships team. I'm joined today by my colleague, Michelle. And as Michelle mentioned, she'll be running the Q&A and the chat. So if there are any questions or comments as we go, she will be kind of fielding those and replying or kind of interjecting if there's a good time to ask Antonio those questions. And then we're also joined by our guest of the hour, Antonio. He's the current principal at Abraham Lincoln High School in Denver, Colorado. And I will let him introduce himself a little bit more fully in a moment. But today, he's going to share a little bit about Abraham Lincoln's journey as a school and how he as principal has used his school's identity to build a long-term innovation plan. So Antonio, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your background?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. I'm Antonio Esquibel. I'm the principal at Abraham Lincoln High School in Denver, Colorado. And this is my second stint as principal at Abraham Lincoln. I was principal there before from 2006 to 2011. And then over those next 8-9 years, I worked in different roles with the district leadership roles where I was supervising schools, leading a family and community engagement office. Also did some work leading the college and career readiness office. And then, sometimes life is a complete circle, and I had an opportunity to come back to Lincoln. So now this is my second stint as principal. And I'm in my 26th year in education.
So I think that actually gives a nice segue into our first question today. So you just mentioned, obviously, this is your second stint being principal at Abraham Lincoln. So can you share a little bit of the backstory about how you ended up back as principal and kind of the circumstances that led up to your return?
Sure. In 2011, I had the opportunity to lead a turnaround network of schools in Denver Public Schools. A lot of that was based on the success that we had at Abraham Lincoln High School previous. Lincoln at the time was really struggling academically, and we were able to do some things there really around college readiness, specifically focusing on rigorous instruction and hammering in concurrent enrollment as well as more advanced placement courses. And so I left in 2011 to lead turnaround work in Denver Public Schools. And like I mentioned prior, I also had some opportunities to do some other leadership work within the district. Over the last, from 2011 to 2019, over those 8-9 years, the district had asked me a couple times if I would be interested in returning to Lincoln as principal. And I felt at the time that, the principalship was kind of in my rearview mirror, and I didn't really have an appetite to go back and lead a school. However, in the spring of 2019, the principal at the time was resigning, and the new superintendent asked if I might be interested in coming back again. So this was like the third time they asked me, and I needed some time. So they gave me a month to think about it, and it really reflected on, where I was at in my career, and really was reflecting on, priorities in my life. And the fact that I'm a graduate of Abraham Lincoln High School, I grew up in the neighborhood in Southwest Denver. Also, Lincoln was unfortunately in a need for, a new direction. Abraham Lincoln High School is on the accountability clock with the state of Colorado Department of Education. And so after contemplating that, speaking with my wife and family and other colleagues and, some folks that I really respect, decided to return. So I ended up coming back to Lincoln in the fall of 2019. So I'm in currently my second year of my second go around, but really felt like, Lincoln is home. It's where I had a lot of success in the past. Like I said before, I was a student there. I also taught there. I was a coach, coached sports there. I was a dean of students, assistant principal, and then now I'm back again as principal. So it really feels good to be back and trying to figure out ways to get this school back on track.
In terms of demographics a little bit, do you want to talk a little bit about, about the identity of Abraham Lincoln and kind of who the makeup of your school is?
Sure. We are located in Southwest Denver. Southwest Denver is predominantly large Latina population. This year we have a little under 1,000 students, and our free reduced lunch rate hovers above 91%. It should be closer to about 98%, but sometimes it's hard to make sure that all our families fill out their free reduced lunch forms. We do have a large second language learner population, in particular Spanish speaker. Over 70% of our students identify English as their second language. Also, we are a comprehensive high school. However, we are integrating a new college and career academy model. We're also an English language acquisition program school focused on something called TINLE, which is a transitional native language instruction school. Denver Public Schools is in a court order. That court order has been in existence for about 30 to 40 years, basically saying that if you have a school with a certain percentage of native Spanish speakers, you then are designated as a TINLE school, which means that we provide Spanish instruction in math, science, and social studies with English language development in English. And then as they progress at Lincoln High School, they little by little get transitioned out of those Spanish core classes, and then they start to take some transitional courses, and then eventually they are fully engaged in full 100% English. So we are a transition native school. And like I said, we are trying to integrate our best, a new college or career academy model. We were recently approved for a PTech program, Pathways and Technology School, where that provides our students access to college courses all the way up to a 13th and 14th year of high school, which would allow them the opportunity to earn an associate's degree in business at our school. So really excited. That's part of our new innovation plan, is to integrate these new college and career academy models.
Yeah, and I think we'll definitely want you to speak a little bit to that innovation plan, obviously here in a little bit. So you had previously just kind of said that Abraham Lincoln had some challenges kind of after you left that kind of led up to your return in 2019. So in terms of what are those kind of challenges and what was really the state of the union facing Abraham Lincoln kind of during those years?
Sure. I think there was some different things going on at Lincoln, but then also the district. I would say between 2014 and up until about 2019, for about those 5 years, a couple things were happening. One is the district is a very, at the time, it's starting to change a little bit, but a very strong pro-charter school district, also a pro-innovation school district, which means that there was opportunity for new schools, new ideas of new schools to be brought to the forefront in the district. And Southwest Denver was a priority region for this. So over those last 5 or 6 years, there's been an influx of new charter schools in that part of the city, as well as new schools. So with that being said, that changed the enrollment opportunity for students between 8th and 9th grade. So there was more choice in that region of the district. So that started to impact Lincoln's enrollment. So Lincoln's enrollment dramatically decreased. When I was there in 2011, the last year I was there, we had an enrollment of 1,930 students, and we had a waiting list. And we had built up that enrollment during the time I was there prior. Now we have about 970 students. So there's about 1,000 students less at Lincoln than there were before. And some of that, like I said, was district controlled with more options. But then also, I just think, unfortunately, I think Lincoln didn't do a good job of really connecting with the community, sharing their vision, and also just, really prioritizing like the programming and the different type of courses Lincoln offered. And then I think Lincoln kind of lost their way in terms of like really making sure that everybody understood what the mission and vision was and what they were trying to do to align their work towards that. And I think because of all those, those different factors, it really contributed to, I think, a lack of enthusiasm from students and community about the school. I think also there was some confusion in terms of like instructional strategy, just the main action steps that the school was trying to go after to improve student achievement in particular. And then I think also just this this shared ownership, right? Like everybody coming together to really feel like they had a part of ownership, which comes with, again, with accountability with the school. So all those different factors contributed to I think just some unfortunate events where academic achievement started to go downward, started to go spiral downward, and in some cases flatten out. And so like I mentioned before, for that reason, the school is on priority improvement with the state.
I know one action that you took, and I can't remember if this was something that I believe that you actually had instated when your first round as a principal, but then you brought back, but was the Lancer Leadership Cadre. So if you could talk a little bit about what that cadre is, kind of who it's composed of, and then kind of how you worked also through that group to kind of start developing this innovation plan, and what that process looked like for bringing that team together.
Yeah, so when I was at Lincoln prior, I created a Lancer Leadership Cadre, where it was a group of teachers, mainly faculty, to help me think about what did we need to do at Lincoln High School to kind of get it going in the right direction, right? To really think outside the box, more creatively, more innovatively. And that really helped us with our plan at the time. So when I came back now in this second stint in 2019, the Colorado Department of Ed was very clear that we needed to create an innovation plan. And in Colorado and in Denver, innovation basically means, can you identify any policies or barriers that exist that potentially hinders the academic growth of a school? So obviously wanted to do this in a collaborative way. So decided to create a second version of the Lancer Leadership Cadre. And in this version, I did reach out to teachers, counselors, paraprofessionals, also students. And we met, there was about 30 of us, and we met at least once a week beginning back in September of 2019. And really what it was to try to get a better understanding of where this group, and it was a cross section, everything from, first year teachers to, 20-year veterans, ninth graders, 12th graders, and then also other staff members, and really wanted to get an idea of where they felt like Lincoln, needed to get better at, right? Just like a general overview. And then also a sense of like, what is their vision? Like, what would they like to see Lincoln be in the next 2 or 3 years? But most importantly, like, where would they like to see students at? Like, what kind of skills or characteristics that they want students to be able to attain, right, during that time. And so we met, like I said, religiously once a week, usually for about 2 hours each week, and started to do a couple things. One is we started to identify schools out there in the country that has similar demographics to Lincoln, and started to do some research in terms of what were they doing, what kind of programming did they have that was contributing to increase in achievement. And so we spent a lot of time just trying to figure out, like, what are the different components of what makes a school really good, and what are schools doing to ensure that students are being supported academically, but also emotionally and behaviorally in that journey. So that there was a great opportunity to bring together a collaborative team so that we could put all of our ideas on the table. And that was really the beginnings of what we needed to do in order to begin this journey on creating a new plan.
So in terms of that innovation plan, I know, there was some community engagement. There were some pieces that you really did to tap into your community to help kind of get that ownership. So can you talk a little bit about some of the design process and kind of how you went about that community engagement piece?
Sure. Once we had a pretty good idea of what we wanted to do, like once this plan, the ideas were starting to take fold, we then decided to engage more of the broader community. So we ended up creating a survey with the support of Inflexion, and we sent out a survey to all of our students and all of our families and also other community members. And we had a really good response rate. We had about 85% of our entire student body. So over 600 students actually, close to 700 students actually filled out the survey. We had over 180 parents and community members that responded. And really what we were able to do is get a better idea. We want to do two things. One is just to hear what they have to say, right? But also we wanted to see how did that line up to what the Lancer leadership cadre had been working on. And it was really clear that a lot of things aligned. There were a lot of things that were similar. And, you know, some of the first things that came out of that was really making sure that we had a vision as to how we were going to prepare students to become college and career successful, but most importantly also, you know, adding the component of life success in there. And so it was a really compelling activity. And then we were able to share those results with our cadre, our team. And then we took that information and we, you know, were able to embed a lot of those ideas into our new innovation strategy. But also at the same time, we knew that there were certain things that we had to, you know, continue or really streamline. One was around second language instruction, like I mentioned in our data, specifically our demographics. When you have over 70% of your students identifying English as a second language, then regardless of classroom, right, if it's an elective classroom, if it's your honors, if it's your advanced placement, or if it's ninth grade courses, you know, you're going to have second language learners in there. So it was really, really important that in our plan that we embed sound sheltered instruction strategies. And that is something that we did when I was principal before. So our professional development, our instructional framework is all really focused foundationally around sheltered instruction. And then really that's coupled with making sure that we have best first instruction strategies. And then also we believe that if we can do that, it will engage students more and hopefully increase attendance daily for classrooms. And then that coupled with, I think, this broader idea of what a plan would look like, really trying to increase and build upon a stronger student culture, school culture. One thing that I think we championed when I was there before was a really strong school culture, right? We had really one of the two best high school cultures in Denver for many, many years. And that's one thing that I noticed when I came back is that had fallen off quite a bit. So with all that being said, I think that's what we're trying to do, right? Is trying to recreate, rethink, rebuild what high school should look like. And these components, you know, connecting with the cadre as well as bringing in feedback from the community really helped launch that at the beginning.
When you talk about the culture, you know, the school feeling like, you know, it was kind of lacking in some of that. I know, you know, one thing is you tried to really bring back, you know, this connect, prepare equals success. Can you talk a little bit about kind of what those words and how you are really trying to live and breathe those within Abraham Lincoln?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's when we were getting the feedback from our community. One of the things that I think the community forgot about or didn't know was some of the history and some of the, you know, the positive accolades, successes that Lincoln has had. Lincoln started in 1960, the school, right? And so a lot of positive things have happened during that time. One of the things I wanted to kind of bring back was just, you know, let folks know that, you know, Lincoln is a good school, that it has had opportunities to show its greatness in the past. And one thing that I did early on in 2019 is I wanted folks to remember, or for the first time to know, that President Obama actually visited our school in September of 2011, actually right after I left. And it was because of the things that we were doing specifically around school culture and those kind of things. So as you can see here on this image, this is our main hall. When you first walk in, you see this image of Barack Obama actually speaking here at our school with many of our students and staff in the background. And I wanted to kind of connect that tradition, that history of some of the things that we experienced. Now, when we think about this idea of connect, prepare, and success, that's what kind of really came out of the feedback from the community, was that the community students really wanted to make sure that the staff and you know, teachers in particular needed to make a stronger commitment with connecting with our students, in particular in ninth grade, right? Not just the ninth graders, but also connecting with our community in general, parents and just overall folks that live in the Southwest region. And so that was step one, is we need to really make sure that we're creating strategies and opportunities to connect with students and community. Then once we have them, right, once we have them in place and we're connecting with them and we're talking to them and we're building trust, then that's where the next piece comes in, where we have to prepare. So our teachers, the adults in the building, we've got to do a much better job of making sure that once we have them in their classrooms, that we're preparing them for rigorous instruction, that we're preparing them for, at the end of the day, really making sure that they have opportunities for different college and career aspects of programming within the building. But then also the prepare piece also connects with the first part in regards to social emotional supports. And then if those things are happening consistently, right, then there's no doubt we're going to see success for our students. So early on, that's what came out of the feedback, was this mantra around connect, prepare equals success. And so we've been doing trying to do a good job. Obviously, COVID got in the way of how do we put this up? How do we show this in different ways? We've created it on t-shirts, where we gave all of our students these t-shirts with this on there when they registered for school. But then, we really haven't seen most of our students since March of 2020. Since they've been gone, we've been adding a lot of different branding and new signage on our walls and in our hallways, so that this really does become something that they see, but more importantly, it's something that they feel and experience with our teachers.
That sort of leads, I noticed, so the next slide here is really an overview of your entire kind of innovation plan that you put together. And one of the first things that I noticed when I was looking at it was the fact that, over on the side, you have this connect, prepare, and success, that those are actually built into the innovation plan. Starting with your freshman academy, really, getting those ninth grade students connected, and from there. So, can you talk a little bit about this kind of innovation plan that you put together, a little bit about the P-TECH and everything, but also connecting it back to that identity of who Abraham Lincoln is in school, and how that's kind of threaded throughout the plan?
Sure. So one thing I've learned when I was principal previous, and also when I was supervising schools, and I've had the luck to visit a lot of amazing high schools across the country, the schools that are similar in demographics to Abraham Lincoln, they have one thing that's really, really common. They invest in their ninth graders. And if you invest in ninth grade, specifically with the right kind of supports focused on attendance, behavior, as well as academic progress, then you're going to get really high return on investment, right, by the time they graduate. So this year we instituted something called Connect Academy. Our Connect Academy is really our year-long freshman academy. And so all of our ninth graders are divided up into 4 different teams. Our teams are named by different colleges in the Denver, Colorado region. And so all of our ninth graders are divided into those 4 teams. And then we have teams of core ninth grade instructors that support them. And really, we believe that if we can set a really strong baseline support with our ninth graders, then we're going to see some really good things happening with them as they continue through high school. So the Connect Academy, which is also known as our Freshman Academy, is our foundation. That's where we connect with them. And then the Prepare component are the different college and career academies that we developed in our innovation plan. So the 3 that we have are as a career and technical education academy, where we're really focused on making sure students have opportunities to experience, job shadowing, mentoring, internships. We also have a 3-year paid apprenticeship program where students actually get paid for working and going to school. Within that academy, students will have the opportunity to earn an industry certificate, but then also the potential of earning an associate's degree, as well as college courses. The second academy is our concurrent enrollment advanced placement. This is going to be for students that are really interested in pursuing a 2-year or a 4-year college degree. Again, the focus here will be rigorous courses, as well as concurrent enrollment and advanced placement, as well as some pre-AP courses as well. And just like the career tech pathway, there is opportunity for some work-based learning experiences and then also the opportunity to earn college credit. And then our newest academy that I mentioned previous, that was approved by the state of Colorado, is our P-Tech Academy. This academy provides students with an associate's degree in business. And we have a partnership, industry partnership with Pinnacle Assurance, as well as Microsoft, and also our budget and finance department within the district. In this program, students will have the opportunity to continue to earn an associate's degree in their 13th and 14th year of high school. And so that 13th and 14th year would be experience at the college. We partner with the Community College of Denver for that. And then, so we believe that these three academy approaches will then ultimately provide our students with success, right? And the goal is that all of our students will graduate college and career ready with, at the minimum, 12 college credits, some sort of industry certification, and also the opportunity to earn an associate's degree. So then we labeled, these three different components: connect, prepare, and success. This is a little older version. We have to update this a little bit, but I think this gives you an idea of kind of like where we landed based on the conversations we had with our community and so forth.
Absolutely. It's never done. I'm sure there's always little tweaks and adjustments that you guys are making to it. And I'm sure COVID has also probably, put a little bit of a wrench in that as well. So I think, you had this plan put together. So in terms of getting your communities really own this and say, so obviously, they had a say in the, you were engaging them, you were asking them what their thoughts and opinions were pretty early on, but how did you get that to really own and say that, this is the direction that we want Abraham Lincoln to go? And then kind of the dual side of that is, obviously, with the drop of enrollment, and there were some, kind of perceptions of Abraham Lincoln in the community. So how are you kind of trying to combat and, push against some of maybe those less than desirable perceptions?
Yeah, I think, well, one thing that I leveraged was my connection to the school and my connection to Southwest Denver, right? So I think that helped, right? I know not all schools have that leverage point, but having, being from the community, having had success there before, I think a lot of our staff members in particular, and many of our students, and then some of our community, felt like this was a compelling component to really think about, right? Like this guy's coming back and he wants to reinvest in the school. So probably, his leadership, we should probably pay attention to. So I'm just naming it that helped quite a bit. But then also, just like I mentioned as well, is like, creating the leadership cadre, creating surveys to really hear and get feedback from the community was huge. And then we updated folks all the time, right? We were sending out information to our community, in particular our students and staff, on a timely basis to really make sure that they understood, what we were doing. Also, I think what helped, right, was really trying to get the community to understand that, and it's not because we had to convince them. They just know, right? Like our community, most of our community live in poverty, and a lot of our family members, as like in many schools and districts around the country, their parents don't have a high school diploma and obviously not a college experience. And so, we wanted to figure out what can we do to try to change the trajectory of poverty in Southwest Denver, in particular the families that attend Lincoln High School. And so that's something that we started to message, was that it's our responsibility as a school to make sure that these things happen, right, through connecting and preparing them. But we really need to make sure that our families understand the end product here, right? Like if they can understand and believe that their student at the bare minimum can earn an industry certificate, so as soon as they graduate from high school, they're able to maybe land a job and focus on a skill and start earning a livable wage right after high school, then that's huge, right? And then, but I think also what we wanted to do is we wanted to raise the expectation to say, hey, at our school, we're really going to do our best to prepare you for a 4-year college experience. You can earn a bachelor's degree, because we all know that the data is clear too, right? That to change the trajectory of poverty, generational poverty, many times we need students to earn a bachelor's degree. And once they can get that going, then that can change the livelihood of their families. So we did a lot of outreach with that. And I think also what we did, what we did do is we started connecting with our media. So we had some really nice stories that were done for us by local media, news stations, also, newspaper articles, really highlighting, this new plan of ours, and really highlighting, students and some of our families' opinion of what this plan is. And so that is part of it, right? Is like, we really have to flip this perception of what Lincoln was and what it needs to be going forward. And that's been hard because it's been 5 years where Lincoln's kind of been in this rut, right? But part of it is that our community, in particular, our middle schools and some of our elementary schools, they just didn't really understand what was going on at Lincoln. And so the last, 18 months, in particular, last 12 months, we've been really trying to work hard in rebranding, remarketing, sending out communication, making sure people understand what our mission and vision is. And one of the key hires that we made 18 months ago was a full-time communication specialist. And so he's done an amazing job of really reaching out and making sure that, more folks, in particular, our families, understand that. Because right now we're, the landscape's changed. When I was here before, we didn't have these charter high schools that we had to compete with. Now they're there and they've been outperforming Lincoln. And so now it's my responsibility to figure out, how can I convince a family who believes Lincoln is not a viable option to now consider Lincoln, right? And what I do know is that families worry about ninth grade, and they want their son or daughter to have a strong experience. They want their son or daughter to be safe. And they also want a compelling vision for what ninth grade could look like. And I think by really making sure that we're investing in that, we're going to see that. And we're starting to see some of that already. We were looking at some data very recently for the ninth graders, the cohort that are in our P-Tech Academy. And, they're averaging a 3.0 GPA. They're averaging 90% attendance, and they're outperforming their ninth grade cohorts students. And so the more that we can share that kind of information, I think the better we'll be. And so it's a constant battle, trying to change perception. And the way you change perception is by actually showing them data and actually doing the work. And so little by little, we're starting to hear more and more from our families. But I think also little by little, what I'm starting to hear from our elementary and middle school principals, that they're excited to know that Lincoln has a vision.
Yeah, I think making those connections to the feeder schools is huge, and kind of making that intentional outreach. And I know you actually, you had to get some kind of approval on this innovation plan. And so I know, this kind of at the top here talks a little bit about that stakeholder input you talked about earlier, but then there, so it was some approval you had to get done. And it really, you had pretty astounding numbers in terms of support for your innovation plan.
Yeah, I mean, we had to send a vote to our entire faculty and staff, and we needed at least 50% plus one to get this approved. And we had a higher approval rating than that. We had over 80% overall from our teaching force, and then our CSE, which is our collaborative school committee meeting. All members approved it, and our administrative team. And then once we were able to show that, how much support we had, then our Denver Public School Board of Education had to approve it, and 100% of the board approved our plan. We had different meetings that we set up. We had community meetings, as you can see there on the slide. That's actually our superintendent at the time, Susanna Cordova. She was presenting kind of like the situation Lincoln was in to the community. What was interesting, a side note, is that I learned when I came on board the second time, is that a lot of our faculty and staff and students, as well as our community, didn't really understand the situation or scenario that Lincoln was in, specific to where the Colorado Department of Ed saw Lincoln. And so that was one of the things I had to do, was like make things much more transparent, like say, hey, Lincoln's in trouble. We need to do a much better job, like quickly and very soon, in order to get things moving. And so I think a lot of that was, just a sense of urgency. And again, the focus on getting word out to our community was big. And like I mentioned, there's some data there that shows you some of the stakeholder feedback that we were able to get back from our folks was really, really compelling. One of the things I'll also note is that, I was able to send some of our Lancer Leadership Cadre members to Texas and California to go visit other schools that were highly successful, that had similar demographics. And we saw different program types and so forth. But one thing that came back was that what was very clear is that the vision and the mission was very transparent. It was clear, it was understandable, and it was visible, right? Like everything that those schools wanted students to be able to do was highlighted in the hallways, highlighted in classrooms, highlighted in their marketing. And then it was also backed up by what was going on in the classroom and the experience the students had. So that was another component that we did, is we sent folks out, 2 teams, Southern Texas and then the Anaheim area in California, to go look at different models and see what they were doing. And so that also helped provide us information and some feedback on what we wanted to do in order to kind of get this school going in the right direction, specifically with this plan.
Yeah. So obviously it's been a tough year for all schools with COVID, navigating, so many challenges that you never thought you were going to have to. But now that this plan is kind of in place, how's it going now? And kind of what are those kind of big hurdles that you're still, trying to work on and overcome right now?
Well, I was really excited to start my second year with this new plan, right? Because year 2 was going to be year 1 of the plan.
Right.
And like everybody else in the country, right, March 13th, 2020 is when we were placed on lockdown, or not lockdown, school closure. And I would say that's been the biggest challenge, right? Is how do we make sure that this plan is rolled out and executed in a virtual environment? Right now, we have about 25% of our students back in person. We were the school in Denver that had the lowest number of students and families that wanted to return to in-person. Big part of that was because the southwest region of Denver, in particular the Abraham Lincoln High School neighborhood, got hit really hard with COVID. From about end of September till December, we were at about a 28% positivity rate in our neighborhood. And so a lot of our families are frontline workers. And so our families got hit hard. A lot of family members got sick and they were scared, and they're still fearful. And so we've had a really hard time of trying to get our students to come back in person. But we're getting about 120, 125 a day, hoping to double that after spring break. So I would say, just in general, right? And it's like, preaching to the choir here. It's COVID. It's the pandemic. It's the virtual environment. However, what I will say though is, I think our messaging to our families and our students in the community is working. There's been, some outreach from folks asking a lot more questions about our school. I'll just give you one example. The president and CEO of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce reached out to me about 6 weeks ago and said, "Hey, I'm hearing you guys are planning to do some amazing work there at Lincoln High School. How can I and how can we, as a Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, get involved? And how can we support?" Also have another CEO of a company here in Denver that employs many people. He's in the steel industry. So they do a lot of welding and industry in terms of like building different, just constructing different buildings. They just do a lot of work with steel and metal. And this guy just reached out to me too, out of the blue, and said, "Hey, would love to figure out how we can get involved." So what that means is that our messaging is starting to get out there, right? And folks are starting to pay attention. And so we're really excited that, the last 9 weeks of the school year, that we're starting to build out some additional planning and supports and resources, and really trying to figure out how can we connect some of those things more to our academy approaches. Now it's a matter of of just really making sure that we can, piece together our students from now until the end of May, hoping that they continue to be engaged, hoping that they continue to be focused, that they have success. And, I would just say that, like, this has been one of the probably the most challenging past year of my career, and still trying to figure out how do we keep kids connected every day using Google Meets. That's hard. It's hard. And how do we get them to see and feel and experience this college and career academy approach? That's really hard because they're not in the building. We're supposed to have about 340 freshmen this year. We have about 270 that still have not set foot inside the school, right? So how do you create an environment where you're trying to create this foundation of a freshman Connect Academy approach when our freshmen, 80% of them haven't even been inside the school yet, right? So I think that's it, and so really looking forward to the opportunity of bringing back all of our students in August. We still haven't got clearance if that's going to happen, but it looks like potentially we will have regular school back in August, and really try to do some different things in this summer as well to reconnect our students with some summer engagement opportunities, targeting some of our lost learning opportunities, and then bringing all of our ninth graders back a week earlier, because that's part of our innovation plan too. Our ninth graders start their school year 1 week earlier than everybody else. So just excited about that. There's no doubt we're going to make the progress. It's just, we're just like everybody else trying to trudge through this COVID thing.
So I think, if there's anybody who has any questions for Antonio, please feel free to put them in the Q&A section, and then Michelle can feed those back. And if anyone has any questions, go ahead, put those in there. And then there's a final question for you, Antonio, and this is something that we've been asking to every single person who has been kind of doing one of our coaching clinics this year, but about something that you personally have started doing differently because of the pandemic, but something that you're going to carry over and continue to do once we are no longer in this pandemic.
Yeah, I think a couple things. I think one thing that I think I've always done a decent job of is building relationships with our staff and also students. Mm-hmm. But what the pandemic has taught me is that I've got to go deeper, right? Got to go deeper with the social, emotional, and mental health supports that we're providing our faculty and also our students. But I think sometimes we neglect our faculty and our staff. Everyone's been hit and experienced something different with COVID. And so I've spent a lot more time trying to figure out, what are some of these barriers and challenges that some of our most impacted adults in our building have experienced. And so I want to continue that. I want to continue to make sure that everybody that has anything to do with Abraham Lincoln High School knows that we're really going to pay attention and provide supports and resources for folks that are struggling, specifically with the mental health aspect. Then I would say the second piece of this is continue all staff meetings, more likely virtually. We have about 120 staff and about 70 teachers. And so in the past, we usually do weekly professional development for our teaching staff of 70 in person when we were before the pandemic. Once we got to the pandemic and everything had to be virtual and remote, we added an all staff meeting that's 30 minutes each week that we didn't do before. And so our secretaries, our paraprofessionals, our custodial staff, just everybody else that really had not been part of like our weekly professional development learning because they're not instructors, that has like really been a game changer for us. It's really brought our staff together more. It's building stronger ties and trust, adding to that school culture. So that's something, regardless if we're in person or not in August, we're going to continue and probably do it virtually because it's just easier to access and folks like it. And so I would say, reflecting back, those are two things that I want to continue to focus on.
Thank you for sharing. Michelle, are there any questions?
There aren't any in the chat or the Q&A, but since there's a moment, I actually have a question that I'd like to ask if you don't mind. I'm just wondering, you mentioned you had the opportunity to kind of visit other schools with a group of teachers and also highlighted really just the amount of approval that people had for this plan and everyone kind of being on board from the get-go with the innovation plan. So I'm wondering if there's any kind of things that you've observed in the classroom that really jumped out to you as things not happening spontaneously, but kind of originated by those classroom teachers, or that people brought to this experience that you didn't think of or that you hadn't kind of considered might happen. So it's kind of those surprises that have emerged from bringing those things together.
Well, I'll be honest, it's been hard to identify because, the vast majority of our instruction has been virtual. It's been remote, right? But one thing that has, I would say, progressed in a better trajectory is our advisory program. And so all of our students take part in an advisement class at the beginning of the day between 8 and 8:30. It's called Lancer Connect. And with that, all of our students are supported by at least, one teacher or potentially 2 adults. And they're small, they're 12 to 15 students, it's by grade level. And we've really tried to provide the content around connect, prepare, and success. And so that's something that was really prevalent in all of these schools that we visited in Texas and in California, that they spent a lot of time and investment in advisement type of courses, homeroom classes, to build those connections with that 1 or possibly 2 adults. So that has really carried over. And it's been probably one of our strongest, I wouldn't say a program, but components, specifically with our virtual environment. And so, so I think that has carried over. And then one of our assistant principals and 2 of our counselors, actually all 3 of our counselors at the time, they had visited schools in Texas where they were doing this well. And so that team is really the one leading the advisory now. And so I think they were able to learn some things, but then also trying to figure out ways to align that with some of our new way of thinking. So that's been compelling and it's helped.
That's great.
I think that concludes, unless there's anything else, Michelle. I think we can kind of call a wrap. So Antonio, thank you so much for your time and sharing a little bit about your story and your experience with Abraham Lincoln. Appreciate you taking time out of your snow day today to be here with us.
Thank you, Rachel and Michelle. Appreciate it. Thank you. Good luck to everybody.